Creative Kitty, Karen Birchill here, and I'm going to do another Back to the Basics page, but I thought before we did that I'd talk about where I get some of my ideas for the page from. Now, and I'll put the link to this, I did a video a while back about my big blue box storage system for all my jelly prints and colored papers and different kind of things and pictures. So that's what I'm going into right now. So this is my folder, and this one is, it's texture, design, bling art. Now these are things that as I'm looking through the magazine, it just strikes me. It just catches my attention. And so I cut those things out, and sometimes I may use this on a page, but sometimes this gives me an idea for what a page is. So the question mark with the file folders, it just struck me that we have the bright colors. That could be something on a post. You know, this one with the card, you can paint over the card and have it be something very personalized on that sheet. So I also have some kind of, in here, special quirky ones. Things that are just caught my eye. You know, these, I'm just going to get this out of the way. The way the bottles are filled here. The thumbprint, you know, that would be nice texture in the background of something. Angel wings, the spider web here. So some of these are, you know, might end up being part of a page, but sometimes it's just inspiration. So I have, there's another folder here, texture, design, pattern, and I find a lot of makeup, you know, we have the colors and all the circles, you know, so I'm thinking, you know, I could do a page and have circles and layer them on, and that would be a nice background. You know, some of the phrases that they use can be used up. It's all about the color. Same thing. I could use that in my page or for start off. There we have the color rings. Again, the idea of circles, stamps, pile of clothes with the circles. This was actually a Tide commercial, but all this, you know, and that gives me an idea for, I could collage all different pieces of art and cut some of my materials that way. So, you know, as you're flipping through magazines, it's not just about finding a picture. It might be the design element, how they've arranged it, how, you know, we have these spears and these squares, and I might use that as an inspiration or a jump off point in a page. So I'm just going to set this aside. What I had here was here's another one, you know, green color paintbrushes. Now here's the one that I'm going to try. I'm going to take some inspiration from this and try to, for some reason we have some glare here. So I really like, you know, we have the circles, which always look good on a page, and it's falling down. And then this would leave white space. So that's what I'm going to use my inspiration for. And I may use, it's all about the color or true colors in there. I'm not sure. So Let me start by saying I've never done this before with the palette knife, so this is new for me too. But I'm applying color in the circle, getting lots of paint there, and I'm using the wider brush or wider palette knife, and then I'm painting the circle so it's got good coverage. I switched to the narrower one, and I'm quite happier with that. Watch how I end up holding the palette knife and what works, because that kind of tells the story as I'm doing. Now I'm using my Liquitex Basics. You can do the same thing with your cheap dollar store craft paint. It might be a little bit runnier, so you might have to put less on and scrape it and apply it and scrape it. Now I'm putting the three colors together because I want them to kind of overlap as if they did fall on top of each other. So trial and error, kind of pushing it that way. You'll see me holding the palette knife later more vertical to the page and kind of pulling down that way, and I think that gives me the greatest effect. And if you don't have all these colors, pick the colors of the rainbow. Do it with 5 colors. You don't necessarily need to have all of them. I happen to have all the ones that they had in the magazine, and it fit across here, but that's okay. Having the circles going up and down, some off the page, also adds interest to the page. Keep in mind, this page is probably 6 inches from top to bottom, 12 inches across, both the double page spread. So there's not a whole lot of space here. If it was a bigger page, I may make bigger circles and more paint and drag it down, or have circles on the top and the bottom. I'm getting a lot more free with scratching the paint down, pulling the paint down. I'm not as worried, and I'm liking the effect better. So, I'm going to practice this again and again till I'm happy with how the paint is coming down. But I want it to look jagged. I want it to look very natural and not like I've painted it specifically. There I am. I'm going to mix the lime green, and then I realized that I have the lime green color in my Delusions paint. So the Delusions paint is rather thin, much like what the dollar store craft paint would be, and it comes down very, very, very nicely. So I think the next time I do this, if I use the Liquitex paint, I will actually thin it down in a separate container first, and then pull. This page I had gessoed to begin with, and now I'm just touching it up, and I'm just putting some paint right on my palette knife and dragging it down. This is where I'm doing that vertical up and down thing with the page right there. You see me doing it. And that works really, really well. As usual, by the time the page is done, I know how to do something. The bright colors of this just make me very happy. And I think if somewhere in this time I'm thinking rainbow colors, even though these aren't quite true rainbow colors. And there you see, I'm just pushing it, pulling it down, up and down, getting lots of color. So after a quick dry, I'm getting my Posca paint pen. Now, if you haven't heard of these, they are wonderful. They do not smell like most paint pens do, which for me is an absolute necessity. And I'm just outlining the circle freehand. I decide that I want it to be thicker, so I do go with thinned black acrylic paint, and my liner brush, which is always an alternative that you can do with it. If you don't have a Posca pen, you can use any liner, black liner pen. You can buy the Posca paint pens in sets. I think this is ultra fine, but if I was buying it again, I would buy just the black and white. So I'm making the circles a little bit bolder. And then as I do that, I'm thinking, oh, now I can go with the white. So one idea leads to another, leads to another. So I'm getting my white Uniball Signo, which is a wonderful liner pen, but it's too faint. So I go and I grab my white Posca paint pen. I decide that I want to shade, do some shading, and put some shadows in the circles. So I decide to do that before I finish off with my white Posca paint pen. But again, a Uniball Signo white pen or a gel pen that you have will work. The paint pen is permanent. The Uniball Signo is not. Some gel pens are, some aren't. So you have to know. But a good basic black one and white one, really important basics, I would say, for art journaling. Here you see me going around the edge. Sorry about the view here. I'm just going very roughly with paint, black paint, going around the edges, just to frame the picture with the black and tying in with the black on the circles. Using the dash of the white, I just think it just totally made this. And I'm adding a little white with the Posca pen and rubbing my finger on it so to have the reflection showing. So I'd gone, when I stopped the camera, I went and I printed off "Be a Rainbow in Someone's Cloud." The actual quote is "someone else's cloud," and it's Maya Angelou's. But I decide here that I don't like that it's white. I'm covering up too much of the color that I dragged down with the palette knife. So I print it off again onto deli paper this time. And I have a video where I show you how to print onto deli paper or tracing paper. And I ripped it instead of cutting it because that will help it become almost seamless once I apply the Mod Podge. Mod Podge matte is what I've used. You can also use a gel medium, again matte finish. I don't like the shiny, if everything's shiny then I like shiny, but I don't want little bits and pieces shiny. As you can see, the deli paper just kind of disappeared. And you can still see the color shining through from behind, which is what I wanted. Sign and date your work. It's nice to look back. And I decide to get out my Posca paint pen, and I'm putting some dots on the letters. And I just put 3 on each letter. And before I get to the end, I'm deciding that, no, I'm going to go put it all the way around. And it just seems to set it off. We're almost at the end here, and I'd just like to say thank you for watching and subscribing to my channel. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. That will make sure that you will get notified of upcoming videos. Here's the completed page. Take time to check out my blog at creativekatie.wordpress.com for a step-by-step instruction for the same page and other interesting articles about art journaling. Thanks again. See you next time.